So I have actually taken this name, Wild Children Domesticated Dreams, from a friend of mine who has written a book on the same name. Uh, and of course, the rest is mine only. How literacy and education infantilized humans and killed the natural cognitive system. So, so I will just explain to you what are the next, the four sessions that I had planned after this. So one is that what I'm claiming is that there is a cognitive crisis in the modern humans because we have turned against life. The way we are destroying life points to the fact that we have forgotten how to live, and all kinds of poisonous things that we are forcing everyone to eat through our all kinds of discoveries. And, I mean, it's endless actually. Almost every aspect of life has been commercialized and killed. The life has been taken out. So what is the reason is something that we are going to explore in the understanding cognitive crisis. And the other thing that we are going to cover is that this is, creation of knowledge is something that we have completely forgotten in the modern paradigm of education. All of us are trained to analyze second-hand information. That is, and they're convincing that that is knowledge, even though it is just written words. And so how do we actually create knowledge is something that I'm going to cover in that which actually covers what I call as implicit knowledge creation. What I mean by this is that that you learned your mother tongue, you imbibed your mother tongue with no choice, you made no effort, and implicitly all of you knew grammar. Within 3 years, you knew how the structure, the structure that held the language together, which is grammar. But without knowing actually explicitly grammar, we were able to speak very well. So the second point I'm talking about is that how implicit knowledge is the very nature of learning, nature of life, how we understand world in an implicit manner. And this whole misunderstanding about what is knowledge, how is it created, unfortunately none of this has been explored in the modern paradigm. uh, so this is the second thing that we will be exploring. And the third thing is that understanding children, how actually children create knowledge. Because what we believe is that in order to understand the crisis of modern human beings, we have to revisit children as if they are creating knowledge. They are capable of creating knowledge and they don't need our help. They are equipped by life to understand the world. So this is something that we'll be covering in that. Because almost everything about modern childhood is distorted and misunderstood by modern human beings. One example I want to tell you, that we have fragmented children's lives into play, learning, entertainment, work, that kind of thing. But for a child, because they are playful, they turn every activity into play. And every activity is a learning activity, and every activity they are enjoying, and every activity is done with absolute seriousness. So what you call as work, what you call as play, what you call as entertainment, everything is integrated into one act of the child, which the modern people have fragmented. You have allotted different time, different space for that. All these are complete distortions of the modern mind, but unfortunately because of the arrogance of the modern mind, they just don't understand any of this, because they are made to feel that they are developed, they are educated, and all that kind of nonsense, which they begin to believe. So this is something that needs to be completely revisited. And then we are talking about what is the conducive conditions for awakening what is inherent in us. It's simple that none of you had, that inherent ability is to learn language, you know. And in Bangalore slums, children learn 4 languages by the time they reach 4 years, you know. So it is the condition that that particular place had 4 languages. There was no teaching. They were living in total experience. Due to all that, the natural conditions, natural cognition began to function. So with no effort, children learned 4 languages. So what I'm trying to say is that the conditions or the context can actually either enable awakening in you or it can condition you. Modernity gives a space for conditioning, whereas indigenous communities, a space is for awakening, primarily because in indigenous communities, you will never hear a parent telling a child, don't do this, don't do that, all that kind of things. And you will also never see a child asking permission for anything. They are existentially free. They are free because life has, that is the a condition of existential condition of life. Without freedom, existence cannot happen. But modern people have, taken over this freedom as if they are the ones who are going to give freedom to children. And that's a very anthropocentric idea. You shift into indigenous illiterate communities, they will never talk about freedom, but their sense of freedom is internal. They are free. So that is the third, the thing that we are going to discuss there. So here, what I'm actually trying to show you, and other thing that I want to tell you is that almost all these words are completely misunderstood. Because creativity, of course, is permutation, combination, all that kind of stuff. And intelligence, everything is actually linguistically defined. And everything is in the paradigm of the mind. What the mind can do is what is understood as cognition, creativity, everything, organization of knowledge, everything has been understood in the realm of language and mind, which is the problem of, which is a crisis, actual crisis of modernity. Actually, our senses are functioning without any choice. And life has equipped us to understand the world, and we can only understand the world through senses. That is the role of senses. But this whole modern educational paradigm takes away senses 100% and replace it with just reading. And in the initial 15 years, just believing what has been told to you. You have to believe, because that is the way that knowledge has been, organized, that you have to believe what they say. And then when you reach 17, 18, 19, they will ask you, now you think about, they have invented words like critical thinking and all that nonsense, And critical thinking, what does it mean? Of course, now there are experts and professors teaching critical thinking. And the absurdity of everything is that. And, the thing is that how can you be critical of if you don't have any authentic experience? You have read 10 books. You can be critical of which author you have to cite. That's all. That's your choice. So this is the whole drama that is happening in the name of education, and what we do to children need to be completely broken, and a very fresh exploration need to happen about children. So what I'm actually going to share with you in this presentation today is, some of the things that I started living with rural tribal people, and slowly, my eyes was open to the fact that actually they are far more alive, far more creative than what has been told to me, that that I was supposed to go and save them. That was the role that an educated person is supposed to have. That you are great, you are an educated man, you are, they also say civilized. I don't know what that means actually, but anyway, so you go to a village, save them, that is the role. But when I went there, I realized, no, it's actually the tragedy is, it's completely different. It's actually we who needed saving, because by default, we have been anti-life. That's the system that we are trapped into. So I began to observe children, and I began to document children. And in the last, so 91, 92, around that time, I began to document what I see in children. And of course, here I have selected few from my own collection. Some, some have been downloaded from the internet, and few that comes in the WhatsApp group and all that. No, so I've connected few of that, and I'm just trying to show you that. And there are also other misunderstandings which modernity has been promoting, that we are far greater than animals, because I don't think they are in any kind of competition with us, but we claim the competition all the time. We keep telling we are much better than animals. For animals, please leave them alone. But in my life, in my observation, I found that every living being is intelligent. Every living being is creative. Every living being is creating knowledge, because without knowledge creation, life cannot exist. Every living being is creating knowledge required for them to survive. That's the bottom line. Whole knowledge is for sustaining life. That's the basis of all this. So, so one thing that I want to show is that in indigenous communities, there is no teaching at all. Teaching is anti-life, whereas learning is life. Mother is doing, the child is repeating. And the mother is not worried whether the child is learning or not. Unlike the modern parents who are all preoccupied with teaching their children. So this is actually coming from distrust with life. If you trust life, then you don't do this. You know? So, and this is the, and of course, this is termed as child labor. I think the biggest crime is taking children to school. That is, no child will ever want to go to school unless you convince them in different ways. Otherwise, children actually want to live in the world, engaging with the world, doing that. This child is a menial job. This child is anything. It is the modern world that has, that has created work as something very inferior. No child will ever treat any activity as inferior. Every activity for a child has the same value. This child actually, I recently shot this, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And now in many of the potters communities or many of the artisan communities, children sit and work, And the other thing that I want to tell you is that I also teach in design schools. I find that children actually coming from, backgrounds where children have freedom to do things, they turn out to be far more better designers. And because, see, the intelligence is working when you're actually doing things, not when you read. That's a misconception. When children are actually engaging in activity, autonomous activities, where they can take decisions, they can do things, that is when their actual intelligence gets developed. Little child, maybe 5-year-old, he had seen his father doing this. So this is, his father is doing this. Actually, this is my brother's son. So there is a pond nearby and he's making his little boat. I don't know what you call this. Can you help me? What do you call this?
Raft.
He's making it on his own, completely on his own. He never went to school till 12 years. And my brother was into farming. He was completely free and doing all kinds of things that he and absolutely no adult supporting him. So today, the other tragedy that I'm finding is that in the modern world, you will never see children doing any work on their own. Every time there is an adult. And I can tell you the most dangerous people that modernity has created is play workers. Because under the assumption that children doesn't know how to play. So even that has been taken over by adults. And I'm sure no modern adult will dare to let their children do this. This is absolutely natural, normal in indigenous communities. No fear at all. Even fear is something that we induce. I mean, that has been induced on us, so we induce on children. And please note, these are girls who are doing it. Again, a lot of drama about gender issues, I mean, this is again a modern invention. Go to rural tribal areas and look without your bias. So this is a download, but still, I mean, I thought this is so fantastic that how a little child is able to be absolutely responsible, sensitive, responsible. So it's interesting how modernity has recently invented a word called empathy. You know, it's important to note that. You see, by default, we don't have empathy. So now they have created an idea called empathy. You have to be empathetic, you know. But please visit some villages, illiterate people, and see whether they need your training in empathy, you know. Maybe 9, 10-year-old girl. I hope the educator doesn't watch this girl, see this girl actually, because they will take her and put her into school because we don't know how to respect people. That's the reason that this intelligence, this creativity, this ability has no respect at all. If you read and write and tell some nonsense, yeah, respect it. It's a very natural thing in a in children. So almost you can actually see the loss of knowledge in the modernity. Take anything actually, anything that is has to do with existence, whether knowledge of agriculture, knowledge of food, knowledge of health, no basic knowledge at all. This is other thing that I've seen in the village that I stay, that children by 7, 8, 9, they all learn how to swim in the river. No adult ever goes helping them to learn. Children, on their own go and just swim. And this is another thing that I've found, the difference between in the way handicapped people, so-called, handicapped people are treated in rural tribal areas, how they are respected, and how they are, because in my own village, there are two blind people and they do absolutely normal lives. Then, of course, this again, I shot this in some work site. I saw children inventing their own games. This is fantastic. It's interesting how they build the complexity into this whole game. That's why I'm showing you this. Anyway, now I'll go ahead. You can see, uh, how they build this, how discipline, everything you can see, how there's nobody disciplining them, how that happens. There's another fantastic video that, of course, this came in the you'll find, in different places. This recently came to me. This is in, where was it? This is somewhere in Bihar. Are you able to hear the sound? I think, no, na?
No, no sound.
Okay. Let me just share the sound, because this is really beautiful. Just show your hand. If you're not hearing, let me know.
Can't hear you. There's no sound in the video. Got it.
Ram Krishna Hare Jai Jai Ram Krishna Hare Ram Krishna Hare Jai Jai Ram Krishna Hare Rupa Mahatanu Chale Rupa Mahatanu Chale Rupa Mahatanu Chale Sukha Jale Vasasane Rupa Mahatanu Chale Sukha Jale Vasasane
So this is another, I don't know whether you know about Manginiyars in Rajasthan. So that whole community, all children learn, everything on their own. So this was a friend had done a theater production based on that. So I'm just showing you some part of it. But in actual life, children learn everything on their own because it is there in the community. Almost everybody in the community sings. So children pick it up. And actually girls pick up the dance and the men pick up the singing and the instruments usage.
साहब मैं तुमसे पूछ रहा हूँ यहाँ मुझे लेके क्यों आया मुझे जवाब दे।
जवाब
अरे हाँ जवाब और क्या?
तो ये लो
Quickly.
हंसो मत, बेवकूफ भी, चुप। ये गाने लगा। ये तुम्हारा काम है जो ये गा रहा है, नहीं तो तुमने गा दिया नहीं गाता। तुम सुधरो सुधरो पढ़ो। हाँ अरे यार पढ़ो, संगीत में कुछ नहीं रखा है, क्या गाने में हाँ हाँ कर रहे हो? पढ़ो, करेक्ट बनो। अगर बाबा नहीं पढ़ोगे तो फिर यही हाल होगा। सारे
जमालार तू जोगण भई वीर मृगे के खनाले गली गली में भटकती भोजन करती जमा खारे आप भी ये मूर्ति बोली मारी और चले आप भी ये मूर्ति बोले
Actually, this very interesting thing about the earlier Magniars is that unlike the Hindustani classical music, it is not at all organized in that grammatic, in that form, but their quality is equivalent, extremely high quality music, but learned without any kind of, organized in terms of raga and, all that kind of stuff. So this is, I don't know, I again got it, but this is part of the, we actually ran a school from 2011 to 2013, 3 years in Pune, which of course some parts I will show you, where children began to draw. And our studies in drawing, children's drawing, we found that drawing is also a cognitive activity, which means actually to understand the world they draw. Drawing has nothing to do with art. That's a modern mental construct, actually. Drawing is a cognitive activity very much connected with play and making of toys. You can see that if you don't make them sit down and draw in one paper, they use all space. And for doing whatever they feel like. In fact, in our school, one day 3-4 children was just taking the chalk and going around and drawing like this in the hall. And then they were telling that, this is the water that is flowing, So, I mean, you see, the problem is that we actually provide a very conditioned kind of a space. And then we make all our conclusions, We don't let children behave in the natural manner and try to understand them from that context. We create our own rules and, and then we say that children are like this. This again is something that happened in our school. small injury in his finger. So now children are going to find some leaves.
सृष्टी ओके आपण टीचू आणि हे
Dari ya lalawi. Ate niya lalawi lo. Sabi ko siya ako.
So, so these are things that actually children are empathetic. All these are absolutely natural. But we actually create a condition in which we kill all that. So that is where the whole tragedy begins, So I also have been also looking at how animals use intelligence, So this, maybe you must have seen this, how bread is being used to catch fish.
Brilliant.
Of course, earlier they actually put some seed into the water, and when the fish comes to
Next.
eat the fish, the bird hana. So you can see, how
I have.
what do you call that? Bread pieces are used to as bait to catch the fish.
Grief. Makes it easy, doesn't it?
So there are many, many such examples, though this is not just one. So you will, and this is fantastic how they open water tap to drink water. This, in fact, I had shot how ants are becoming bridge. You see how they're trying. Slowly they create a bridge, and So what I'm actually trying to prove is that every living being is intelligent, but we don't trust children. That is why I so now you can see how how we make infantilized children through all the tricks that we have been told that we should be doing. How children should be encouraged. You can see what happens in this.
Oh, see, big tower. You got 3 more. Two more.
Father doesn't know what to do. The child is taught that whenever he puts something, he has to say, hi. Anyway, so, I want to share with you something that actually made me really go out and, tell people how we are destroying children. And I was staying in a small village in a potter's community in Kerala. And I was doing a workshop called Sensing Nature and Knowing Nature. And all along, I've been following this idea that children should be left alone, just, but I didn't actually realize they're that capable. So I want to share with you some things that children did completely on their own. And these children actually belong to illiterate community. They have never done anything called art. They have never painted, So those days, it was, I think, in 1990s, no, around 2000, 2001, around that time, I was doing this workshop. So I'll just show you some of the work that children did with absolutely no help. So this is using dry leaves. Children are from about 10, 11, 12, up to 13, 14 years. That's the age group. There were different activities. One of them was using, dry leaves. Other one was using, old magazines. And actually, what was very, very interesting in these cases was that because luckily I didn't have money to buy all the 12 colors, I only got them 6 colors, that the red, black, blue, yellow, white, red, that 6 colors only. And without any help, they were able to mix and match and get all the colors, actually, brown, whatever color. And they had never done art, so-called painting and all that before. Huh? So that is when I began to understand that there is a process that is beyond the reasoning kind of stuff that we are made to believe, that made to think that, that this color and this color, and not as a result of teaching. So you can see one side is the original, other side is the painting of that. A 13-year-old boy had done this with those 6 colors. Again, using, whatever dust and all that from the ground, using laterite stone, then, sand, and different things. Rock, actually, what do you call that? Rock is what?
Ash.
Yeah. 2 types. Now, you can also get black ash and white when it is overburned. Huh? So it was so interesting how they were trying to get all kinds of colors from nature, actually, and creating this. And I want to again and again remind you that there was absolutely no teaching, no interference at all. Because I was the only adult and there were about 60 children. And I was actually functioning like a peon an intelligent peon who would give them very carefully some materials, not every material they want. So one group was doing clay work. Just observing their surroundings. This is another fantastic work. Black sheet, and they cut it out. I call it negative space because what is interesting here is the negative space. This is mind-blowing actually. This again, a 13 or 14-year-old boy did this. You can see that this, I'm sure you know, this is that Karela. What is Karela in English?
Bitter gourd.
Bitter gourd. So this is a bitter gourd leaf. You can see the tendrils. Look at the deep, the way that the child has drawn the tendrils, how that curl has been cut out, This also, you can see the way how a leaf is overlapping on that, this one, how that overlapping leaf, they have, So it's so interesting to see how they are addressing very complex things, This is coconut leaf, meaning cutting, cut in paper. So this color scale is something that I was absolutely, blew my mind actually when I saw that every child was able to mix, match and get this color. And I want to share with you one interesting workshop I did in Hyderabad some years ago. So in the school, I did a workshop for teachers. And as I was doing this, I also got all the ayahs and drivers from the school, who were, most of them were illiterate and had not gone to school and all that. I gave them the same task. And 95% of the teachers could not do this because they wanted to be taught how to do this, how to mix. Whereas the illiterate people, both the drivers and the ayahs, they're able to simply mix and match and do this color, So the notion that somebody has to teach you is something that gets instilled when you go to school. Otherwise, learning is natural, discovering is natural, trying out is natural, Making a mistake, that terminology is an invention of the school. You can think about it. When you're learning your mother tongue, did anybody tell you made a mistake? So the idea of a notion of a mistake is a school invention. So many children actually were able to do this, So just exploring the range of color that is there in nature, that itself is fantastic. All these are leaves, dry leaves. Yeah, you're saying, yeah. So just few activities that we did, which so what I actually do is to actually provide them with very complex forms, but for me complex, but children don't treat it as complex. They just do it. But somebody who has been taught in the school, they will not be able to do this because they are already trained, to say that they don't know how to draw. That's actually quite interesting that I have also worked in some rural schools in Andhra where I get 8th standard, 9th standard children to draw, and nobody ever tells me they don't know how to draw. Not that they draw, but everybody draws from, whatever think that, whatever way they can. But nobody ever says that they don't know how to draw. I think that is a very, very important thing, Actually, there's a very complex thing to draw, but how children are drawing. So basically, this work was something that really made me look up, and sit up and really start, telling schools that how damaging they are to children's cognition, children's natural evolvement. Not just schools, the whole modern paradigm of ready-made toys, ready-made, instructions. Yeah, so you can see the detail how that tendril has been treated, Yeah, so sorry to say this is only just like a trailer only. Yeah, Andre, please. Andre, unmute and ask, please.
No, that's just an applause. Thank you for sharing all these observations.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Can I ask a short question here? Do we have time and space?
Yes, Akansha.
My question is how to, because I mean, I do agree with this. I am aligned with this thought and idea that children should be left free, and the ideas and the learning and the playfulness together that they come with can actually make adults very, I mean, it can surprise us in ways that you just described.
Yeah.
But my question is that at times things can go out of hand, very dangerous. And sometimes some children have so much energy in them that it needs direction. It cannot be left out in the open. Sometimes I think, looking at certain children. So where does this line of thought that children should be left free, fit there with these children? That's my question.
Yeah. I think when you stay in a small village, I don't think you will ever ask this question. You see how daring young children in villages are. See, the problem is that modern minds, including mine, are scared of things. There are two issues. One is that we have created a completely unchild-friendly space. That's what modernity is all about. It's a very dangerous anti-child space that we have created. Secondly, we are all darpokes. Basically, that's the whole problem. We are infantilized, actually. We don't have guts. We don't trust life. So we are so schooled and conditioned that it is we who needs first help, not children. Because we are actually very bad for children's. Our influence on children are very bad, actually. We are so mediocre.
Yeah.
So what is that? So it's actually we who needs change, not children. How do we recreate an environment where we bring back our own, abilities? We become more humble. You see, look at this now. I'm sure you must have gone around the villages also. People who, and that, they have far more knowledge than us. We hardly have any knowledge. But look at who is more arrogant and confident. It is the educated, no? So this is the problem now. So by default, there is a problem with our system, that we are arrogant. Even though we know nothing, we are very confident. You see? So there is a fundamental problem in our formation. You see, take empathy, for example. Empathy is something that is life-given. Every child is born with empathy. How do we do it? And then suddenly discover that, we have to do workshops to re-empathize people. Take cooperation, for example. Children are always working together, cooperating with each other. But we very clearly in modernity create individuals who are selfish, who are self-centered, and suddenly realize that now we need to do workshops to help them to cooperate. You see?
Agreed. Yes.
So what modernity has done is that it has completely destroyed everything. And now, as if they are discovering for the first time, this is what is happening actually.
Right.
If you take the word, as I told you, out of the box thinking, every educated person now celebrates that terminology, out of the box thinking, as if for the first time somebody is talking about it. But nobody is worried that how we got into the box. That's the whole problem, that we want to address. We want to say, how do we get out? So our default is in the box, as if, as if our default is to be unempathetic. Our default is to be individualistic, not, so we fundamentally something has gone wrong. So the issue is that now we must have, what I feel is that we must have two approaches. One, we have to have a long-term approach. And we have to have a short-term approach. The short-term approach is that how do we do less harm to children? Because modernity by default harms children. For example, the very existence of school is anti-life. Because, see, learning is a process of given by life. We distrust it and we create a school and tell children that go there to learn.
Right.
It completely undermines the gift that life has given them as a learner. So of course, what I'm actually telling is not, it's a long-term kind of thing. I don't have there's nothing short-term about it. Short-term, of course, is that how do we repair ourselves is the first question, Yes, Ritu?
It was a very nice, it was really good to hear you. मैं एक स्कूल चलाती हूँ, I run a school. So for preschool, how to get across parents for this. So my approach is like, I'll give you one small example. Teachers, of course, they would draw if they have to draw a rainy season, they will draw the rainbow, teardrops ki rain aangi, and the rainbow, everything, just the same thing. So I just walked in the class and I asked, what is the shape of the raindrops? So they said circle, rain, whatever teardrops. Then they were sitting on the interval time, they were sitting on the jungle gym and it started raining. So this boy, this is 5 years old, he's telling me, Ritu ma'am, aapko to kuch aata nahi hai. Kyunki dekho jara, ye raindrops ki shape hai, wo straight line hai. So it is a straight line they're coming in. So agree. So we do have this kind of space and I do provide them where, okay. But how to get across to parents, how to, can there be a school or at least that space where we are giving them that space to be their own, because they're not getting it at home or anywhere. So I'm just providing that space. But then the school, does that school run or it doesn't? It works or it doesn't? That is my question.
Even though we are claiming that we are going to be the Vishwa Gurus, we are the most third-rate institution, schools in the whole world.
Yes.
Every other place has much more interesting. Even China has a much interesting exploration happening in terms of education. There is something called Angie Play, which is a fantastic, not very fantastic, but somewhat better than any experiment that is happening. But you in this country, you cannot even point one place that is worthwhile to go and see. This is the tragedy of this country, which is claiming to be the next Vishwa Guru.
Yeah.
So we have to take the risk and tell people that no, there is a way that we have to do. You see, the school we ran in 2011 to 2013, that probably could have been the best example in the world.
Yes,
because we have actually created an environment where children are absolutely natural. There was a ban on teachers to teach because we told them that you are not worth imitating. You don't even know anything.
Yes.
How are you going to teach?
Okay.
Understand? Huh? So what we created was an environment where we learn what children are all about. We try
Yeah.
to understand what is knowledge creation, because none of that we know. You know,
Hmm.
of course, it's a long-term process. You know, something that and the mistake and our shortcoming was that we did not have enough people to work with community. So you have to work with community. You have to work, and also the other very important thing is that you also need some kind of a support from outside. Meaning somebody telling that, oh, the school is done very well. You know,
Yes.
there has to be some, at least some support for exploration that is happening. And due to many of the reasons, we could not run the school for 3 years, but it was a fantastic experiment where, there were a lot of changes that we were able to understand many things. So the issue is this, that, first of all, I don't think we have adults today who truly understand some of the deeper aspects of learning, how children learn, how they create knowledge, what kind of environment is required, all that kind of thing, So actually what is required is that how do we go back to a space of humility and start learning rather than becoming teachers,
Yes, that's very true. Thank you.
Andre, please. Andre?
Yes, I want to make a point. You just said that you had a ban on teachers to teach. So this is maybe I think this is the best short-term thing we can do. Now, I learned from two authors, and this is already more than 50 years ago. It's Ivan Illich and John Holt. And John
Who was
Holt.
the other person?
John Holt.
John Holt. Yes.
John
yes,
Holt.
yes.
Yes. I learned, I read from both. I don't know if they met, but it was the same time, end of 60s, beginning of 1970s. They agreed that the biggest problem in leaving schools is going against teachers' unions. They both agreed on that. Teachers' unions is the biggest problem. So if a ban on teachers to teach is part of the solution, then going against unions is the bigger problem. And I want to tell you this from a parent's perspective. I'm a father in Europe unschooling. My oldest son is 13 years, and he never went to school. But it's no thing we do in the open, and this is probably the best thing, to argue with teachers, not to argue with teachers, but leaving them alone. Just as Pink Floyd sang back then, not leave us kids alone. Adding to that, we adults are learning, we are kids, we are playing, and that's the best thing to learn. Not leave us kids alone, but leave those teachers alone, and do a ban on teachers. And whenever I come close to a teacher, I'm silent. Yeah.
Actually, we are mixing things now. We are actually looking at employment generation. That's the whole problem. But we are not interested in the science, that what is learning. Those kind of things is of hardly of interest. So the employment becomes more important than actually what should happen in a school. In fact, what we should do is that give money to teachers to sit at home.
Yes.
And leave children alone.
Yes, and you showed an example with the birds catching fish. When the bird uses the bread to catch fish, I thought, well, this is not only intelligence, this is predatory. And isn't the teacher the same sort of intelligence for just becoming a predator to have a profession? And the best thing, if you are a fish, is to not go after the bread, because it's natural. You see what I mean? Being a teacher and going after this profession is kind of intelligent, even though it destroys cognition.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you again. Applause.
Yeah. Mohit?
Yeah, hello. Yeah, my question is that how can we save our children from the ills present in the society, be it smoking, drinking, vulgarity, pornography, and why our children are not listening to us, why they are misbehaving with us, when we are losing no stone unturned to help them, to cooperate them. These
How
are
old is your child?
13 years.
So you started damaging the child from the time they are born. So they learn from you only. So right, see the issue is that right from the time they are born, we are actually, because we don't understand how to be with children. So the tragedy begins at that time. Now at a later stage, if you tell them to behave, they are not going to listen to you. You should have listened to them when they were much younger. There we begin to impose our rules and regulations and all that, So they're not going to listen to you. Anyway, see, the thing is that, as I told you earlier, modernity by default is anti-child. So, there has to be a lot of work by many, many people to address this issue, that, how modernity has become anti-child in every way. Actually, just yesterday, somebody had forwarded a video. I'm not sure whether this is true, but I will send it to, people who are in the groups, any of the groups, because I want to check whether this is right or wrong. This is actually about young children who had been given iPads, and what has happened to them, how violent they have become, how angry they are, so these actually, we have really not understood that how the environment is affecting us and what kind of environment that is required for us to awaken what we have, So the negative influences are much more stronger. So we get conditioned actually. You see, anger, for example, anger is something that you find far more in an urban area than in an illiterate indigenous community. Amongst indigenous communities, that you will, as I told you earlier, you will hardly ever hear a parent telling no to a child ever asking permission. And of course, the condition is quite safe. Of course, not safe for them, but for our urban mind, it may not be safe because children will go to the river and swim, For an urban mind, that will be dangerous, but for a rural mind, they know that they will learn, So, the more no you say to a child, the more angry the child will become. Because in an existential thing, that you can imagine somebody telling you no, something you want to do, and someone says don't. No, don't do that. Naturally, you'll get angry, na? So children also will get angry like that. So here what you find in modern life is all the time you're telling children, don't do this, don't do that, And every time the child wants to do something, you will go and help. And the child resists your help. The child says, no, I don't want your help. But you insist on helping. Simple things like the child wanting to put chappals. You are seeing that the child is wearing the chappal wrong, left leg, right chappal, and you want to correct it. And the child is telling, go to hell, I will do my own job, But you are in a hurry, or you are in a hurry to correct the child. I'm sure you must have encountered the children wanting to put on their own socks. Do you allow? You don't. Most activities that children want to do on their own when they are very young, you don't allow. But you want to correct the child. Or simple thing, when the child is very, very young and you are feeding the child, Do you respect the child when the child says no? Of course, the child doesn't use language. They will spit out. So you will gather everything, put it back into the child's mouth. So every time, this is what we do to children. So somewhere we have forgotten how to respect their autonomy and their, and evolvement of their natural intelligence. So now, and later we pay the price. See, we need to start right from the time they are born. In fact, probably in the womb also. I think so. Right from the womb, we have to take care. Recently somebody had posted something. I'm not sure again whether this is right, but I think this may be correct. It's this, that even when you abort a child, whatever cells that was there when the child was formed will act as protection to the mother. I don't know whether I made it clear. What I believe is that when a new child, when a new life comes to your womb, it wants to ensure that it has the right environment. So it will first begin to clean you if there is any problem with you. So recently somebody had posted this in one of the groups, and I have shared it with few people to to find out whether this is right. So what the research was that even after the abortion has been done, even then the remnants of that life which was there is there to protect you, and it will stay for a longer time or something like that. Which I don't know. I feel that that it may be true, because I don't think life is as mechanical as it has been made out to be by the modern minds. It is far more mysterious, far more magical, than the dry mechanical understanding of life that modernity wants us to believe. It's like a machine. No, there's far more. In fact, today I was hearing, someone where he says that how does a mother comes to know that something has gone wrong with the son who is far away? Maybe thousands of kilometers away, something happens to the child. Child meaning it could be 30-year, 40-year-old, whatever. Still, that mother somewhere, something will happen to that mother, or some intuition happens, and the mother comes to know. How does that happen? So there is something that is far more deeper, some deep connection that life establishes, that the modern mechanical minds doesn't seems to, the so-called scientific minds doesn't seems to understand these things.